Generative AI is beginning to transform the way we work and the way our society operates. It can write documents, organize information, generate software, and even assist with analysis and system design. Its evolution has been remarkably rapid, and it is becoming an indispensable partner in intellectual work across many fields. Yet, in many companies and real-world environments, we continue to hear the same concern. The AI's answer isn't wrong, but we can't use it as it is. Why does this happen? The problem is not a lack of AI capability. The real issue is that AI does not fully understand the context it needs to make appropriate decisions. Its purpose, the situation, organizational policies, past decisions, and the relationships between people. When this contextual information is missing, AI may generate a factually correct answer, but it cannot produce an appropriate decision. We call this problem the context gap. In this video, we will explore why AI struggles to understand context, explain the underlying reasons, and introduce how the Chinoba platform enables AI to make context-aware decisions. Let's get started. First, let's take a look at just how capable today's generative AI has become. Generative AI can now assist with a wide range of intellectual tasks, including writing and summarizing documents, generating software, analyzing data, reviewing contracts, and even preparing reports and business proposals. Tasks that once required significant time and expertise can now be completed by AI in a matter of minutes. This represents a major technological breakthrough. In other words, AI has become remarkably good at generating answers. However, generating answers is not the most important challenge. What truly matters is whether those answers can be used to make sound decisions in real-world situations. Let's now look at the challenge that many companies and organizations are facing today. In fact, regardless of the industry or the size of the organization, we continue to hear the same message. The answer isn't wrong, but we can't use it as it is. This is true in healthcare, in finance, in manufacturing, in retail, and even in government and the public sector. AI often produces responses that appear reasonable. However, it cannot determine whether those responses truly align with an organization's policies, objectives, responsibilities, and the current situation. In other words, there is a significant gap between AI-generated outputs and real-world business decisions. But this gap does not exist because AI lacks intelligence. The real reason is that AI does not understand the context required for decision-making. So, what exactly is context? The real problem lies in the context gap. Today's generative AI produces text and answers questions based on general knowledge learned from vast amounts of data. As a result, it has become highly capable of understanding language and applying knowledge with remarkable accuracy. However, real-world decision-making requires much more than knowledge alone. People make decisions by understanding the situation, recognizing their objectives, and adapting their judgment to the circumstances. AI, on the other hand, generates the most probable answer based on general knowledge, but it cannot determine whether that answer is truly appropriate for the current situation. In other words, there is a gap between AI and the real world, a gap in the information required for sound decision-making. We call this gap the context gap. So, what exactly do we mean by context? What is the context gap? What AI learns from vast amounts of data is statistical patterns. That is why it can write natural-sounding text and generate answers based on knowledge. However, this is not how people make decisions. When we make decisions, we first consider what we are trying to achieve. Next, we assess the current situation. We also take into account the rules and constraints of our organization and society. We look back at previous decisions and the history that led to the present. We consider who is responsible and who is involved. And finally, we evaluate the risks and uncertainties before making a decision. In other words, human decision-making is not based on knowledge alone. It is the result of integrating many different forms of context. AI, on the other hand, cannot fully understand this entire contextual landscape. This is the context gap between humans and AI. So why is AI unable to understand context? Let's examine the reasons, one by one. Reason 1. AI does not understand meaning. It only predicts probabilities. The first reason lies in the fundamental mechanism of generative AI itself. Generative AI does not think by understanding meaning the way humans do. Instead, it statistically predicts which word or sentence is most likely to come next based on the vast amount of data it has learned. As a result, even a tiny difference in probability can lead to a completely different decision. For example, In this slide, the difference is only 0.49 versus 0.50. Yet crossing that single threshold can completely change the outcome. Should the request be approved or rejected? Is it safe or is it dangerous? In real-world decision-making, such small differences can have significant consequences. A human would make this judgment by considering the objective, the situation, responsibilities, and potential risks. AI, however, does not make decisions by understanding this background. It simply selects the output with the highest statistical probability. In other words, AI is very good at calculating probabilities, but it does not understand what those numbers actually mean in the real world. And there is another important difference. Humans make decisions by drawing on a vast amount of information that is never explicitly stated. Reason 2. Humans rely on hidden context. The same question can lead to different answers depending on who is making the decision. A customer focuses on what creates value for them. A manager considers the impact on the entire organization. A physician prioritizes the safety of the patient. A government focuses on fairness across society. A bank places greater emphasis on risk and creditworthiness. In other words, even when the question is the same, the best decision changes depending on a person's role, responsibilities, and objectives. What creates these differences is the hidden context that people use every day. Human decisions are based not only on knowledge and experience, but also on organizational culture, unwritten rules, and relationships with others. Much of this contextual information is never shared with AI. As a result, AI may generate an answer that is statistically correct, yet still fail to produce the best decision for a particular person, organization, or situation. And in real organizations, there is another major challenge. Every organization has its own unique rules and constraints. Reason 3. AI does not understand organizational constraints. In companies and organizations, decision-making is not simply about choosing the correct answer. Every decision must first comply with internal policies and procedures. It must also satisfy legal requirements and industry regulations. In addition, decisions need to be auditable and explainable so they can be reviewed later if necessary. For important decisions, approval is rarely left to a single individual. Instead, decisions are made through formal approval processes involving multiple stakeholders. In other words, enterprise decision-making is built on many layers of constraints, including internal policies, compliance requirements, auditability, and approval workflows. However, general-purpose generative AI has no inherent understanding of an organization's specific rules, governance, or decision-making processes. As a result, it may generate an answer that is generally correct, yet still fail to produce a decision that can actually be adopted within that organization. As we have seen so far, AI predicts probabilities, humans rely on context, and organizations make decisions within their own unique rules and governance structures. So what happens when AI is provided with that missing context? Let's explore one example from the healthcare industry. Healthcare, a case study in context-aware decision-making. Healthcare is one of the clearest examples of why context matters. Conventional AI can analyze medical images and assist with diagnosis, but that alone is not enough to support safe clinical decisions. In real medical practice, physicians consider far more than images alone. They take into account the patient's medical history, current medications, clinical guidelines, and the treatment strategy being considered by the attending physician. Only by integrating all of this contextual information can an appropriate decision be made. Equally important is the ability to explain how that decision was reached, who made the decision, what information was used, and what reasoning led to the final conclusion. By recording the decision-making process and allowing a human to make the final confirmation, AI does not replace medical judgment. Instead, it becomes a trusted partner that supports clinical decision-making. In other words, what matters is not simply the diagnostic accuracy of AI, it is the patient's context, the traceability of the decision-making process, and the final judgment made by a human. Only by combining these elements can we build healthcare AI that is both safe and trustworthy. And this principle is not limited to healthcare. Decision-making in finance follows exactly the same structure. Finance. Context matters beyond the numbers. AI is also being widely adopted in the financial industry for loan approvals, credit assessments, and risk analysis. Traditionally, lending decisions were based on numerical factors such as credit scores and income. But in real financial institutions, Those numbers alone are never enough to approve a loan. Decisions must comply with internal lending policies. They must satisfy financial regulations and legal requirements. They must follow the organization's risk management policies. And they must pass through formal approval processes. Another critical requirement is the ability to explain why a particular decision was made. In the financial industry, organizations are often required to justify their decisions during audits or by regulatory authorities. For this reason, it is essential to record the rationale behind every decision and maintain full traceability throughout the decision-making process. In other words, what finance needs is not simply an AI that produces answers. It needs a system that defines the appropriate decision boundaries, records the entire decision-making process, and operates in a way that is fully auditable. Only then can AI become a trusted decision support system for financial institutions. And this principle extends far beyond finance. The manufacturing industry faces the very same challenge. Manufacturing decisions are driven by the flow of knowledge. AI is also being widely used in manufacturing for equipment anomaly detection, quality inspection, and demand forecasting. For example, detecting anomalies in production equipment is something AI does exceptionally well. However, the most important challenge begins after the anomaly has been detected. Should the equipment be shut down? Should maintenance take priority? Should production continue? How will the decision affect inventory levels and delivery schedules? Answering these questions requires more than a single AI model. It requires the combined knowledge of multiple departments, including maintenance, production, quality assurance, and inventory management. In other words, success in manufacturing is not about having one AI produce the right answer. It is about enabling knowledge to flow across organizational boundaries and be shared throughout the entire operation. That flow of knowledge connects maintenance, production, and inventory management, leading to better operational decisions. AI is not an independent decision maker. It is an enabler of knowledge flow that supports better decisions by people and organizations. And this principle extends beyond manufacturing. In legal and compliance domains, decision-making requires even stricter standards. Legal and compliance. Decision-making requires trusted boundaries. Generative AI is also becoming a valuable tool in legal and compliance work. It can review contracts, search legal provisions, and summarize regulations with remarkable efficiency. However, its responses cannot simply be accepted as they are. Every organization has its own contract policies. Every industry is subject to different regulations. In addition, each company has its own risk criteria and approval rules. In other words, legal decision-making requires far more than general legal knowledge. It requires an understanding of an organization's own rules, governance, and compliance boundaries. This is why a trusted knowledge foundation and well-designed decision boundaries are essential. AI provides general knowledge. Humans make decisions based on their organization's specific rules, risks, and responsibilities. And the entire review process must be recorded so that every decision can be explained and audited. Only with this kind of framework can AI become a safe and trustworthy decision support system in legal and compliance environments. As we have seen, healthcare, finance, manufacturing, and legal services all deal with different types of decisions. Yet they share one fundamental principle. Effective decision-making is achieved not by AI acting alone, but through collaboration between AI, people, and organizational rules. And in multi-agent systems, where multiple AI agents work together, this challenge becomes even more important. Multi-agent systems. Coordination requires shared context. In recent years, many organizations have turned their attention to multi-agent systems, where multiple AI agents collaborate to accomplish complex tasks. Instead of relying on a single AI to handle everything, each agent is assigned a specific role and works together with others to solve problems. However, this approach introduces a new challenge. If each AI agent acts independently based only on its own judgment, their objectives may diverge, their roles may overlap, and they may compete with, or even conflict with, one another. In other words, simply increasing the number of AI agents does not create a better system. What truly matters is ensuring that every agent shares a common objective, understands its own role, and makes decisions within a common set of constraints. Only by coordinating their decisions can AI agents achieve effective collaboration and collective intelligence. As we have seen throughout this video, healthcare, finance, manufacturing, legal services, and multi-agent systems may appear to face different challenges, but at their core, they all share the same fundamental requirement. AI needs a foundation that enables it to understand human and organizational context and support trustworthy decision-making. That is exactly what we propose with the Chinoba Platform. The Chinoba Platform. The Chinoba Platform provides the missing context that AI needs, creating a foundation where humans and AI can collaborate to make trustworthy decisions. First, it integrates information from people, organizations, systems, and the surrounding environment to build a comprehensive understanding of the real-world context. Next, it enables the flow of knowledge by connecting expertise distributed across departments and specialized domains, delivering the right knowledge where it is needed. It also provides decision traceability, recording the reasoning and evidence behind every decision to support transparency and explainability. In addition, the platform establishes decision boundaries by defining the rules, authorities, and operational scope that AI must follow, enabling safe and reliable operation. For critical decisions, human approval points are incorporated so that human responsibility, judgment, and values remain part of the final decision-making process. Together, these capabilities create a foundation where humans and AI, people and organizations, and even multiple AI agents can collaborate with trust and confidence. But our vision extends beyond building a single platform. What we ultimately seek to create is a new infrastructure, one that enables AI to become a trusted participant in society itself. Context infrastructure. We believe that what AI truly needs for the future is context infrastructure. AI does not exist in isolation. There are people, organizations, accumulated knowledge, and established rules. AI must understand all of these in order to support decision-making, and the outcomes of those decisions are ultimately returned to society. In other words, AI is not separate from people or organizations. It functions within the broader context of society. That is why improving AI models alone is not enough. People, organizations, knowledge, rules, AI, decisions, and society. What we need is a foundation that connects all of these elements into a continuous flow. We call this foundation context infrastructure. It is the infrastructure that connects AI to the real world, enabling humans and AI to collaborate while building trust together. So, how does this way of thinking change the role of AI? Before and after. Bridging the gap. Let's summarize everything we've covered in a single picture. Traditional generative AI has become exceptionally good at producing answers. However, when those answers are used directly for decision-making, important questions remain. Is the answer truly appropriate? Does it comply with the organization's rules? Can it withstand accountability and explanation? These uncertainties reveal a significant gap between answers and decisions. The Chinoba Platform bridges that gap through context. It integrates the knowledge, objectives, rules, and constraints of people and organizations, providing AI with the information it needs to support sound decision-making. It also records the reasoning behind each decision and incorporates human review and approval, ensuring transparency, traceability, and explainability. As a result, AI evolves from being simply a tool for generating answers into a trusted partner for decision-making. But the most important message of this video is not the platform itself. It is the question of what AI is truly missing. Let's conclude by answering that question. The missing piece is context. The capabilities of generative AI have advanced dramatically over the past few years, and that progress continues today, with ever larger models, more data, and higher performance. But throughout this video, we have shared one central message. What AI truly needs to thrive in society is not more knowledge. It is context. The ability to connect knowledge with real-world situations. With context, knowledge gains meaning. Better decisions become possible. Those decisions build trust, and AI can be used safely and confidently throughout society. In other words, context is what connects AI with society. AI does not need larger models. It needs richer context. By designing the infrastructure that provides this context, we aim to create a society where humans and AI can collaborate, building trustworthy decisions together. And this research continues. Finally, we'd like to show you where you can explore more of our research. Explore more at Chinoba Research. Thank you very much for watching. Our research views AI not simply as a high-performance model, but as a participant that creates value by collaborating with people, organizations, and society. In addition to the context infrastructure introduced in this video, we continue to publish our research on AI architecture, including Decision Trace Model Knowledge Flow Trust Infrastructure Runtime Society Human AI Coordination. You can explore our latest research in the research library at Chinoba.org. On our YouTube channel, we regularly publish new lectures and explanatory videos. On GitHub, we share architecture documents, design materials, and open research artifacts. And on our research blog, you can find more in-depth articles covering each of these topics. If you found this video helpful, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and explore the research library. We will continue sharing our research as we work toward a future where humans and AI collaborate to make better decisions together. Thank you again for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video.